start with Bill Belichick. I feel like it's a given at this point he's not going to be back next year. Isn't that the most surprising potential outcome? If we would put all of the various permutations on a board and we were to assign odds to them, and I suppose somewhere you can bet on what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. I haven't seen those odds posted by DraftKings or FanDuel or anyone else, but I bet there's some offshore .ag sports book where you can bet on whether he's back, whether he's fired, whether he resigns, whether he retires, whether there's a mutual parting, or the most intriguing potential outcome, whether he's essentially traded to another team. We spent some time last week talking about the Washington scenario. There's some people in league circles that think that could happen. I'm not reporting it will. It's just something to keep an eye on. That's what we do here. This isn't just reporting transactions. I mean, you can go to Twitter and there are 7 to 10 accounts to follow if you want someone to tell you 5 minutes before it's announced by the team that a player has been cut or signed or placed on IR or whatever. You're going to find out 5 minutes from now anyway. What we try to do is identify trends, take the current information, process it, synthesize it, run it through 22 years of experience, and say, you know what? This may be something to keep an eye on. And sometimes, now this isn't one of those times, but then again, I wouldn't tell you that on the occasions when it was one of those times. But sometimes the things that are my ideas are things that have been told to me by someone who knows it's exactly going to happen and says, don't say it's going to happen, just present it as your idea. This is not one of those occasions. And I guess all I'm saying is, if I ever present an idea and I don't apply that caveat, it's fair to assume that someone gave me that idea with the express understanding I would present it only as my idea. This one is not my idea. This is one that I've heard from someone that it's being talked about in league circles. It's not something that anyone believes is going to happen. It's something that people believe could happen. So if we accept that the longest odds of any of the things that could happen with Bill Belichick would be him coming back next year, do you really just stop and think? Do you really think he's going to be back next year? Do you think he's going to be back? No, you don't think he's going to be back. It's just a question of how it ends. How does it end? Does he get fired? Oh, wait, and I don't want to hear, oh, but he signed an extension, lucrative extension. That was just put out there as a misdirection. That's not going to stop a change from coming if a change is coming and it feels like a change is coming. That's just, okay, how much money do we have to pay him to go away? And that's if they just fire him. See, there's an interesting game of chicken that could unfold as soon as the season ends, because we know what happens. And they used to call it Black Monday. Hell, it doesn't even wait till Monday anymore. We know a lot of the potential openings before the Sunday night final game of the regular season is even concluded. So Monday morning, let's assume that there's no mutual parting or resignation or termination or retirement of Bill Belichick on the day that the 2023 regular season concludes. January what? 8th? Is it January 8th? I think it's January 8th of 2024. The next day, what happens? We wait for the puff of white smoke or the puff of black smoke or the puff of whatever smoke tells us what the hell is happening. Now, what do the Patriots do if they want to wait for one of the other teams that will inevitably have vacancies to make a phone call to the Patriots and say, what would it take to hire Bill Belichick? What would it take for you to release him from his contract and for us to approach him, have a communication with him, have a negotiation with him, and get him to come coach our team? What compensation would you want? And I talked about it last week. That's how it works, ostensibly. You make the call to the team, you work out the deal for compensation, then you talk to the coach and you try to do it. So the Patriots sit back and wait for the phone to ring. They sit back and wait. And they wait. They wait for that phone to ring. Now, the way this goes, you've got to go about your search. You've got to do your interviews. You've got to comply with the Rooney Rule. You can't just immediately call the Patriots and say, hey, we want to hire Bill Belichick. Once that gets out there, you may have a hard time having the kind of search that will comply with all requirements of the Rooney Rule. So it's going to take some time. And I just thought of something while I was saying that. Bear with me. You could have a game of chicken, where the Patriots are waiting for the phone to ring and the teams are waiting for the Patriots to fire him. Like, why do we need to give you anything if we're just going to sit back and wait for you to fire him? We'll call your bluff. We're 2 weeks in now. We haven't hired anyone. We'd like to hire Bill Belichick. You don't want to keep him. When are you going to let him go? The longer they wait, the harder it is for their own search to be done. That's where it can become very interesting. If we assume there's going to be the conscious uncoupling, remember, was that a Gwyneth Paltrow line from a few years ago, conscious uncoupling? If there's going to be a conscious uncoupling of the Patriots and Bill Belichick, how's it going to work? What's it going to look like? Fired, resigned, retired, mutual parting, or essentially a trade to another team. And what I thought of as I was saying this, and this is one of the reasons I like doing this, it forces me to think things through. It forces me to think on the fly, and it may come up with some ideas I otherwise wouldn't come up with. What if it's all predetermined? What if it's all negotiated before we even get to Black Monday / Black Sunday? What if there's a team out there that wants Bill Belichick, that has already told the Patriots, we're going to work out a deal with you to get Bill Belichick. They're negotiating it now, or they'll negotiate it between now and the end of the regular season. And then it's just, okay, here's how this is going to go. We're going to wait a couple of weeks. We're going to do our search. Then we're going to call you. We're going to work out our deal, even though we know what it is. We're going to work out an agreement with Bill Belichick, even though he already knows what it is. And we're going to make it happen that way. That's another possibility that avoids that game of chicken. That avoids the Patriots having to sit there and say, okay, we're going to wait for someone to call, and we think they're going to call. The phone's going to ring. Please, phone, ring. Ring now. Remember Better Call Saul? He'd try to put a hex on the phone to get it to ring. I'm doing that because I've got an old landline right here. I use this for some, the cord's too short. I'm going to screw everything up. Anyway, I use that for some radio spots, although at this point, the cell phone is even more reliable than the connection on the landline. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, are they going to sit there and do this, wait for the phone to ring? Or are they going to have it already worked out? I just feel like the way the Patriots tend to have everything buttoned up, I think they're going to know. I don't know this. Folks. I just think, and this is based on 23 years of experience covering the league and thinking about it and writing about it and talk about it. I think the most likely outcome that we'll never know that this was the truth is it's all going to be pre-baked. Like when you watch a cooking show and they make the dish and then they put it in the oven and then they pull out one that's already done. I think the casserole is going to be pre-cooked on this one if it happens that way. It may not. Maybe there's no one that's willing to trade for Bill Belichick. I mean, the sizzle isn't there. The sizzle that was there 5 years ago isn't there right now. It's just something to watch very carefully as we get toward the end of the season. Because again, if we were setting odds, the longest ones would be Belichick returns to the Patriots in 2024. I believe at this point he'll be gone. What I don't know is what form that will take. And what I'm watching for is whether or not someone works a trade and gets him to be the head coach of a new team. A couple of other issues, though, to keep in mind. How much are you going to pay him? You can't give him equity. There was a thought at one point that once Bill Belichick was done coaching the Patriots, he'd go to another team as basically VP of football operations and get a slice of equity. Can't do that anymore. The league slammed the door on that back in July. He's still going to want a lot of money. Do you make him the de facto GM? Do you let him run personnel? You could argue that the main reason he's about to be out the door in New England is because of his failure as the GM, not his failure as the coach. And there have been plenty of times where I believe Belichick, the coach, has overcome the inadequacies of Belichick, the personnel executive. So does he take over everything? Do they force him to hire someone? Does he reunite with a guy like Scott Pioli, who, when they were together in New England, it was working? Is there a way to reunite with Nick Caserio? It was working with the two of them. It really hasn't been working since Pioli, then Caserio, and Brady gone. So you need somebody who can help set the table, and it would be nice to have a pretty good quarterback.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.